On this episode of Inside Engineering, we talk with Jim Burnett and Barry Brandt, two directors in our traffic group, about the world of traffic engineering, the benefits of progressive design build, and what C.A.S.E is and how it's reshaping the industry. Inside Engineering, untold stories and fascinating people from the world of civil engineering. This is episode 4, recorded in September 2019. Traffic Engineering and Operations with Jim Burnett and Barry Brandt. Inside Engineering is brought to you by RK&K. Learn more at rkk.com. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Engineering. We've got a couple of great guests with us today, two fantastic guys that I'm really excited to have in the studio. To my left here, we've got Jim Burnett. He's a director of traffic/planning operations. We're going to talk about what that means in a second. And we've got Barry Brandt, another one of our directors. He is a director of traffic engineering. Now, gentlemen, I don't know what the difference between those two job titles are, but first, welcome to the studio and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Tim.
Sure thing. So, can you each kind of explain what you do here at RK&K? You have offices that sit right next to each other, and you oversee a very large group, traffic group. But tell us what you do and maybe what some of the differences are in your job and some of the similarities and how you all get stuff done.
Absolutely.
Sure. I guess
there's
two of us.
Please,
so.
Please kick us off.
Sure. So I guess Barry and I both have similar roles. We're both traffic engineers. We also both grew up here at RK&K. So you've got two career directors here with you, starting out right out of college. I guess the difference between what we do really comes down to the stage of a project. So most of the work that I do is on the kind of the upfront side. So involved with the planning, initial, when somebody comes in and says, hey, we've got a problem, we go out and we try to figure out what that problem is. Usually involves data collection, traffic forecasting, and a lot of analysis to figure out not just what the existing conditions are, but how do we make things better. And usually our products end up being a little bit more report-based, whereas Barry, who I'm sure we'll tell you in a second, his role is a little bit more on the design side. So he'll pick up once we figure out what potential solutions could be and then turn it into an actual product, traffic product. Barry?
Yeah, that pretty much consists of doing plans. We do a lot of plan work, a lot of CAD work to get traffic control device design, ITS design, and even as some other parts of our department do maintenance of traffic design. So that's kind of where my part kind of fits in. And pretty much the ending half, including, and as the company is growing now, we're getting more into the operations side. So it's not just, hey, here it is, go build it. After you're done building it, here's how you're going to operate it, and we'll help you operate it. So we feel that's a market that where the industry is going, and we're excited to be starting to be a part of that.
Do you have any projects that you're working on now or that you've worked on recently that maybe exemplify that entire life cycle? Something you could talk about?
The I-270 project actually does that. It's a project here in Maryland. It's the first of its kind at doing a progressive design build project. The first time in the country that a progressive design build has been implemented for a transportation project. And we did the initial planning for it to figure out what we would actually incorporate into the project, wrote a proposal, and we were selected. So then we went ahead and did the final design for it. Most of the projects have been constructed. Some are still under construction. Some have yet to start. So we're still implementing it. And at the same time, we are developing operations plans so that Chart and Office of Traffic know how to operate the ramp metering and ATM systems. So that pretty much encompassed it all together.
Sure. So for anyone listening, could you guys walk us through maybe what traditionally design build is and what progressive design build is and sort of how those two differ?
You want to do design build enough with the progressive?
Sure. And I think we should actually start off with design bid build, because that's really, I guess, when we kind of grew up in engineering, the way most of the projects were let. So in the older school style of doing work, it was initially you come in, we do the design. So we as the engineers would just kind of sit in our rooms, figure out what the plans needed to look like, and then we would give them back to the client, usually a DOT, a municipality, and then they would put them out for bid, and construction companies would come in, bid on them, typically a low bidder, or sometimes there's a technical element to it, but whoever won would then go out and build the project. Then, I guess probably about 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit more than that at this point. I'm getting old. There was a shift in the industry, and it was over to the design-build project delivery mechanism. In that case, rather than doing the steps that I just mentioned, you would team up, the engineer teams up with a construction company and would bid on a project together before it was fully designed. So you would come in, start working on the design before it was even complete. The construction company was going out and starting to do some of the construction work. And it's a very iterative process. So as problems came up, they would reach over to the engineer. Engineer would try to solve them. Oftentimes it was trying to figure out how to do things more efficiently, cheaper, better, faster. So it's just a different way of delivering a project.
And why did that occur? Why did it go from design bid build to design build? Was that a client-driven thing? Was that an industry-driven thing?
The industry was looking for ways to deliver projects quicker, cheaper, in a more innovative fashion.
So it was kind of an organic efficiency that grew out of it?
Right. But we feel that one of the main schedule and time frame is one of the obvious benefits. Instead of having the whole first design process to have to be 100% done before you can start construction, there's an overlap now that you can have, and you can shorten the duration of the entire project.
Okay.
And in large, the industry has kind of bought into that and implemented it in many places.
So then how does that differ from progressive design?
The progressive design build is different in that it seeks to have even more acceleration in the fact that the price of the project on a design build, you agree at the very beginning what the price is going to be from a construction and design standpoint, and then you go do that. Here on progressive design build, you progress through about a 65% design complete. Then you submit the price at that point where you take and agree to it. Once that's agreed upon, then you finish the design. Some of the construction can be started if, some of the basic steps, but it gives a little bit more flexibility in what the end product is. So instead of bidding on it at step 0 and you define exactly what the project is, you get to work through with it and you get to collaborate with the client, and they say, hey, we found this or we found that. And yeah, we were originally thought that this might work, but this might work better. It gives you the flexibility of being able to incorporate that into the price and into the design, whereas on design build, it would be a change order, and it would have to be part of the contract change and
scope changes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So progressive kind of cuts down on those scope changes because you're gotten through 65% of the project. Theoretically.
Yeah. But yes, it has. And in that sense of it, yes, it has.
So what of the design build stuff that you guys are working on now, how much of it is progressive?
Just that one.
Just that one.
Just that one, yeah. I don't know that SHA or any other agency have adopted that on another transportation project. So just that one.
But are you expecting it to be adopted?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think it's new. It's an experiment.
Okay.
I think it's working pretty well so far, but it's the first. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay.
It hasn't yet. Let's say that in 2.5 years, another one hasn't come out the same way, but it doesn't mean it won't.
What, you guys do a lot of different stuff, and this might be a bit of an obvious question, but the things that you do, how do they bring value to the client? I mean, the client has hired us, okay, so that's maybe the obvious part is they've hired us to do something, but what is it? How are you helping the client and making sure, or to make sure that the project is successful?
So I'll take a slightly different approach to this answer than you might be thinking. So
that's good. I like that.
When I got into civil engineering as a profession, one of the real, motivating factors that got me here was I wanted to be able to make a difference to not just a couple people, but a lot of people. How do you change the world? And so civil engineers are a great opportunity to do that because we're changing the infrastructure that everybody uses. So indirectly, it's through the clients. The clients are the ones that are managing the systems because most of our clients are municipal DOTs, and they're responsible for making sure they have safe, efficient transportation systems. So the value that we bring is we're able to come in, assess problems, help our clients figure out what the the best, most cost-effective way is to make operational safety types of improvements and then actually deliver them cheaply and well. So ultimately, though, while the client benefits from that, to me, the biggest benefit we're providing, again, is to the general public.
And Jim, that's a good holistic scale. Now, drilling down maybe a little further. So while we can say that, there are dozens of other engineering companies that can say the same thing. So what we really try to focus on is developing relationships so we can deliver clients what they really want. Sometimes, or what they really need, right? So sometimes they'll tell you they want this, but then if you know them well enough, if you work with them well enough, if you have enough experience in the industry, you can kind of listen to what they say and say, hey, what about this? What about, we could do this, but we could do this maybe a little more cheaply, or this effort really will require this amount of work as well. Do you want us to do that? I think through our experience and growth over the years, we've been able to get that trusted advisor type of relationship with a number of clients, and we can share that with them, and even kind of let that go over to some newer clients and provide that service that we like to think is differentiates us a little bit more from some of our competitors.
Mm-hmm. So when you're doing a project and you're delivering it to the client and trying to ensure that it's delivered on time and satisfactorily and they're happy with it, how are you measuring the success of that project, both from the actual project itself standpoint and from a people standpoint, the people that worked on that project? How do you measure the success of those two things?
I would say you always put the client first. You always make sure that you're meeting their needs. In the end, if you meet their needs, you're going to feel good about yourself in the end. And that means some pretty basic things, that make sure schedules are being met, make sure budgets are being met. I'm finding as time goes on, it's drilling down a little further into some of the projects we're finding that many clients, they have less people now than they used to when I first started. So the collaboration and interaction with them is really a lot stronger than what it used to be. And there's the opportunity to be able to have some influence and some make a difference with them, and make sure that as you go along step by step, you're meeting all the needs, all the while keeping your eye on the ending part of the process to make sure it actually meets what they need when it gets to that point.
Yep. And Barry, that's a great answer for the client side. And Tim, you also asked about the people side, the staff who are working on the project. So Barry, I like how you made the comment, you've learned over time. So I think when it comes to how do you assess how your people are doing, we've learned a lot of lessons over time. Some good, some bad, but it's been a learning process. And so I think we pay very close attention now to everybody in our group. We're making sure not only that they're doing their work well, they've got the right resources, but they're having fun doing it. When you think about it, we spend an awful lot of time here at work working on our projects. Mm-hmm. And while it's great to be able to provide exciting projects for them to work on, there's a lot more than that. So, are they working on a team that they like working with? Are they, again, I said well supported, but are we making sure that they are provided everything that they need to in terms of their work environment? Do they have all the right tools at their disposal? Is it a encouraging environment that they're in? Making sure that people don't get isolated, just kind of off by the side, working on one thing. Make sure they don't get pigeonholed, doing the same thing over and over again. Trying to provide that kind of diversity of work along the way. So it's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun when it works.
And Jim, I think the company is doing a good job with embellishing that and embracing that, establishing the kind of the fund for each department to go and have some after work, outside of work type of team building and bonding goes along right with that. We've been doing that for a number of years, and it's great that the company is doing that as well. It shows that real focus on people.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the things that's really stood out to me during my time here is the focus on people, and it's a legitimate focus. It's not just lip service. There's really caring for people and making sure that they can be successful.
Yeah, I'll say, when you think back on your career, once you've got a number of years under your belt, like both Barry and I do, it's interesting to me that most of the memories actually come from interacting with the other people. It's less so about the projects that you worked on. And, again, we've worked on a lot of big ones, some great ones, but, the memories that stick with you are, the fun times, the funny times you spend with your coworkers. So it's so important.
Indeed. Since we're on the topic of sort of measuring the success of, the people under you, at one point you were under someone in your positions. What's something that you wish you had known earlier on in your career?
Go ahead.
I guess one thing I wish I would have known and really still somewhat struggle with is being able to knowing how to manage your own stress, and that to not keep that internal, that there's folks out there that will help you, give you advice, and to reach out so that way you don't just drive yourself crazy. While I probably was told that, I think maybe my ears were blocked at the time, or who knows what, but I guess it took a number of messages to have that penetrate through. So anyone who's, concerned, frustrated, worried, I would say go ahead and make sure you reach out to folks. There's no point in internalizing it. There's always folks to help.
Indeed.
I think for me, I think it's just the lesson of learning to listen. I think early on I was a little more focused on, myself, getting projects done. Both Barry and I were very lucky that we had a supervisor before, now retired, Barb Hoag, who was great at it. And I didn't even realize she was doing it at the time, but she was always listening to, what I had going on, not just my concerns, but even the good things going on, and just related to me so well because of it. And so over my career, I've tried to get better at doing it. Still not perfect, but definitely make a concerted effort to just continue to listen. And it's not just to internally the staff, but to your clients as well. I think Barry made a good point before about listening to your clients' needs, and the better you know your clients and what they're looking for, the better projects you're going to get out.
Indeed. All right, let's change gears. You guys work on a lot of cool stuff, like I've already said, and a lot of it, or some of it, has to do with forthcoming technologies and sort of the next evolution of things that affect your areas of work. And we call that C.A.S.E here. So could the two of you take some time and talk about what C.A.S.E is, and why you think it's important, and why you're so daggone excited about it?
So I guess to start off with, C.A.S.E is an acronym. It actually started off being just the CA, the connected and automated or autonomous vehicles. But in the last year or two, we've added in shared and electric because they all really mesh together. So connected, autonomous, shared electric vehicles. Why are we excited about it? Well, hopefully everybody is.
I am.
It really is the future of our industry of transportation. There's many different components to it, but at the core of it, it's just the advent of technology that's allowing cars to become more and more, independent or autonomous. Different levels of autonomy. You can start all the way with a level 0 or 1, which is virtually nothing in there. But once you get all the way up to level 5, that is, in theory, a fully autonomous vehicle that can completely drive on its own without any input from a driver or a human. I think what we're seeing out there on the road today is the slow adoption of that technology, or some might say it's faster than slow. But things like dynamic lane control assist.
And that would be level 1?
Nope. I would put that in a level 2.
Level 2, okay. So like a dynamic cruise control, or
dynamic cruise control,
lane keep assist.
Same sort of thing, right? Once you start moving up higher and higher in the levels, eventually, you can, let's say for the trucking industry, they're getting closer with platoon vehicles. So in those, a truck might pull in behind another truck that has a driver, kind of lock in automatically, and then that truck is then controlled by the vehicle ahead of it. So a lot more technology has to go into that, but still you're not at a level 5. So kind of that's the example of autonomous vehicle, connected, as well as connected vehicles too. Here we're talking about vehicle-to-vehicle connection, but there's also vehicle-to-roadside connection. So a vehicle might drive down the road, pick up signals that might send messages that could be displayed to a driver, or it could provide advance warning of an impending stopped vehicle, problems around a curve where you just can't see it. So a lot of potential safety advantages that come into play as well. The shared, that's where we're talking about technology that's already starting to come out. So your Ubers and your Lyfts. It's where you technically don't need to own a vehicle anymore, and you're sharing the vehicles with others. Ultimately, there's a vision of having complete fleets of vehicles where you might subscribe, and rather than own a vehicle, all you have to do is call up a vehicle that you'd be part of their program, bring you perhaps with another passenger in there with you to where you want to go, and as soon as it drops you off, it moves on and picks up the next passenger along the way. That whole, I guess, structure gets even more interesting when you add in the electric component to it, where you can have all of your vehicles driving around, let's say during the day, doing what they need to do, picking up, dropping off, and returning home to a fleet management location where it could get recharged overnight. So,
and Jim, I think it's really responding to society and industry advances. This is not a new idea. I remember when I first came out of college, the program was called something different, called IVHS, and there was ideas for that, but the technology had not reached to the point where it could be out and marketable to the public. Now, from the connected and autonomous, particularly autonomous side, vehicle manufacturers have perfected this technology, but they've got it to the point where they can offer a number of these elements that you just mentioned and are working toward the fully autonomous. It's there available, and it actually be able to be marketable to their customers, and the customers can afford it and want to have it. So that's a difference that we've seen. It's not new. It's just now potentially viable. Also, society. I mean, you see with the electric, having an alternative to fossil fuels is extremely important to many, many people, as it should be. And the electric vehicles help to address that some. And also just as far as demographics, as well as meeting what people want. A lot of people don't necessarily want to drive a long way to go to work or to go where they need to go. Some are even interested in owning a car. So the shared vehicle is able to provide a different model, a more economic model, to folks who just don't want to have that expense and have to really own a vehicle. So we see this as a way is just responding to the world around us that it's happening. And as civil engineers, that's what we do, right? We make society more civil, if you will, right? And so that's what we're looking to do. And we're excited that there's many different aspects that this will yield in our industry, and we're looking forward to being able to participate that as we move ahead.
Yep. And Barry mentioned before, there's potential impacts, and that's what really makes it so exciting to me is, what does that future really hold for us? And there's a lot of really interesting advantages, but there's also, I think, some caution that needs to be held. So I guess from the advantages, we talked a little bit about safety. When you think about just the urban landscape right now, it's dominated by parking. So if you can eventually get to the point where you have level 5 vehicles driving around, no need to have it park anymore. So that real estate might become available, be transformed into something else. But at the same time, curb space, now everyone's getting dropped off and picked up along the curb, becomes a lot more valuable than it already is even today. So we have to think as urban planners about what's a street network need to look like to accommodate that. In terms of the disadvantages, though, keep that same thought in mind of all of these autonomous vehicles driving around. If one drops you off, and then let's say it doesn't have a passenger to pick up for a while, where does it go? Well, is it circulating? Does it then become a new term here, a zero occupant vehicle? Does that actually add to the congestion that's out there? So I guess if left unthought out and unplanned, we could potentially be setting ourselves up for even more problems than we're trying to solve. So I think a lot as engineers and planners, we need to give careful thought to that future, making sure that we're setting it up and maybe having the right policies in place to avoid any of the unforeseen challenges.
And there's many institutional barriers to overcome as well, like car insurance. What happens with insurance and liability when there's an issue? Is it there's really no longer a driver? Is it the auto manufacturer? Is it the software provider? Where does that fall? Then the actual funding and actually who operates this system. There's just a myriad of questions that have yet to be completely hammered out that over time will, but many different aspects that are still hurdles.
And I guess in closing on that, Barry, so your original question was, what makes it exciting? I mean, it's super exciting to be here at the forefront of all of this, and as this change is taking place and being a part of it.
Yeah, that's to see everything that's happened just over the last few years with some of the auto manufacturers and how they're developing the technology has been. You're right, Dave, kind of on the forefront. I mean, all I have in my car is just adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist, but adaptive cruise control is like it's the greatest thing ever. Like it changes the way you drive. Like driving somewhere becomes more enjoyable now. I can keep a safe distance from the car in front of me. It certainly has its drawbacks. It's definitely not perfect,
right? But
I can't wait until a car drives me around. I know a lot of people feel differently, but I'm all for it. Let the record show. All right, so guys, we could sit here and talk about a lot of things and geek out for a while, but let's get to your picks of the week. I assume you guys have come with your picks and you're ready to share with our listeners something that you think we might all be interested in. You guys, are you ready for that? Or have I caught you off guard?
Nope.
Who wants to go first? Jim's looking at Barry. Barry's looking at Jim. Jim,
I'm happy to go first.
You're up first.
So my pick of the week has absolutely nothing to do with transportation.
I love it. Or
traffic.
Good.
But I'm going to give a little shout out to my my volunteer organization I've been a part of for a number of years, Maryland Swimming.
Maryland Swimming. Okay.
So it's just a fantastic group. Anybody that's got kids that are swimmers or are thinking about swimming, I mean, the sport itself is fantastic. I've got a competitive swimmer myself, and that's how I got involved. But I'm now a swim official, and we're always looking for more swim officials. Again, it's a great way to give back. None of the swim meets that happen out there would happen without all of the volunteers that we have. Literally nobody gets paid for putting on these meets. They're long, all weekend type of fairs.
You're not really selling it right now.
If you go to one and you're not part of Maryland Swimming, you're stuck up in the stands. But if you become an official, you get to be right on the side of the pool and you're in the action. So there's the sell.
Do you get a zebra stripe shirt as being an official?
We try to be completely inconspicuous as we can, so we wear a white shirt.
White shirt.
No stripes.
You get a whistle.
If you're the starter, you get a whistle.
You don't need the start. Okay. All right. Something to consider. All right. So Maryland Swimming.
Maryland Swimming.
Excellent. Thank you, Barry. All right. Thank you, Jim. Sorry, Barry. What's your pick?
I'm gonna bring back to work a little bit and kind of go back to a theme we had: is enjoy the people around you as much as you can. You'll find that Jim and I have been together 20 some years and been here over 25 now together, and we've seen a lot of people, and actually, there's a lot of joy that you have in thinking of the folks that you've worked with and that have worked around you, with you through times, and but you think you know them, but then when you have an event with them, you go to after work, you do something, or you have our traffic fest where we play kind of silly games and what have you. You get to see different sides of people, and it's really enjoyable to get to do that. You get to know them better. You feel more of a kinship with them, and it actually does help you get things done over time. So, not to mention just broadening your personal horizons some. So, I really recommend that. It's been effective for us as a department, as individuals, as a team. So, I recommend that strongly.
Leadership tips. I love it. That's great. Well, thank you both. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tim, before we go, so you told us before we were allowed to give some advice out.
Oh, yeah,
so
please,
I didn't want to go without doing that.
Yeah, career advice?
This is, yes, career advice for
any
of our new and up-and-coming employees. So we were actually out at a happy hour a couple nights ago, and I was talking to one of the younger engineers and gave the exact same advice there, and he made the comment, boy, everybody should hear that. So here I go.
All right, I like it.
So I got this advice actually probably the first month I was working at RK&K way back in the early 90s. Turns out, in my opinion, is probably some of the best advice I ever got. And this is from some of the old time guys, and I apologize who it was. I don't remember, but comes back to your 401k. So anybody that's starting out working, I give 100% of advice to you to put in as much as you possibly can from day one, because the advantage you get is all on the back end.
Yeah.
Every year that you don't invest, you're losing out on the back end of that compounding interest curve. And I know I'm sounding engineering and geeky here, but it is so important. And if you're able to put in 15% right up front, you don't miss it out of your first paycheck. And that's what they told me. And so I did from day one, and I'm just forever thankful that I got that advice. So I just wanted to pass that on.
That is very good advice. And I mean, at the bare minimum, people should be putting in whatever their company is matching.
Yep.
I mean, that's like, I'm not qualified to give financial advice, let the record show. But in my opinion, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be doing anything less than what your company's matching. Get that match. That's free money. And if you can, if you can maximize that thing, oh man, you will be happy later on.
Trust me, I remember back in my day, I was saving to try to get an engagement ring at the time, and I was eating hot dogs and spaghetti.
Ramen noodles.
Ramen.
A lot of ramen.
Love the ramen. But boy, it was worth the sacrifice back then just to have that extra upfront that pays off on the back end.
Very nice. That's great advice. Barry, did you have any?
I gave some earlier on, but I'll add one more. Just take care of yourself. The company has shown a strong support toward wellness in a number of ways, and monetarily, program-wise. And when I was younger, I don't know I really paid attention to that as much. I probably abused myself more than I probably should have. And
with long work hours is what you're
right. Yes, thank you for clarification. Yes, and I'm glad that the company looks at that now, and that's where perhaps in the industry was such that was a positive thing when I first started. I think now it's hey, you really should have a strong work-life balance, and folks should do that and make sure they really stress all aspects of life. It's really helpful. It really does help you with it, and I do better with that than I used to, and it's been effective. And I appreciate the support of the company in doing that.
Awesome. That's some great advice. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Inside Engineering. Thank you to Barry. Thank you to Jim for stopping into the episode today, into the studio for this episode. We appreciate you taking some time out. Inside Engineering comes out every Tuesday. You can check us out on your favorite podcasting platform. We're trying to be in as many places as possible. You can also head over to our website at rkk.com/podcast. Where you can stream on demand all of our episodes. And we've also got a short anonymous survey there where we'd love to get some feedback on the show. So let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Inside Engineering.